It is time.
Shark's in order. Our shark.
There's a Sharknado coming.
Dragon sharks?
Are those sharks with laser beams attached to their heads? Welcome to the Sharks.
Joined by writer, producer, and actor Kazy Tauginas, starring in films such as Dolemite and Equalizer 2. How you doing, Kazy?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. Cannot complain. It just got cold in New York, though, man. Wow.
That's awesome. So, thank you for joining us on the Real Sharks podcast. It's real great to have you. So, I just wanted to start off by asking, what made you turn from a Golden Glove, boxing winner to an actor?
To give you a little background, my sport of choice when I was growing up was figure skating, ironically. But I kind of always really had like a thing for boxing, and it was just like, in hindsight, what I really liked about skating was performing in front of people. I only really figured that out once I got into acting. But I did that for years, and then when I was really sick of the sport, I went to the University of Delaware, and the politics that were involved in figure skating just did not appeal to me anymore. And I just kind of decided to scratch off one of those bucket list things, and I decided to buy a boxing gym. And it was one based on my friend's recommendation. He was just like, yeah, this gym's like a great workout. I'm like really learning stuff. And I was like, all right, cool. So I went to Left Jab Boxing Club, and Cliff Johnson, who owned the place, like, I really liked the workout. I got to spar like my first time, get my body beat up pretty bad, and I was hooked. And years went by, and I at the same time owned my own 24-hour diner when I got out of school, and boxing really became my outlet, because the diner was incredibly stressful. I was young. I was like in my early 20s. I didn't quite know exactly what I was doing. I was like kind of just riding the wave. But boxing at that time really was what kept me sane. And when, unfortunately, that whole thing with the diner ended up not working out, my landlord and I couldn't see eye to eye on a new lease. He just was going to have to he wanted to bring the rent up just to the point that I couldn't do business. So I had to walk away from the whole place. But in the meantime, I had kind of come to terms with the fact that, like, if I was going to have to start over, what did I really want to do? And I was like really real with myself, and I was like, I want to be an actor. Had gone to like an open house at the New York Film Academy, and after I had heard what they had to say about their acting program, Matthew Modine showed up and thought we were a class. It was just like this whole series of events where I was just like overwhelmingly like decided I had to be there. And boxing was just like one of those things where I kind of just had to let it go, because once I began acting, and acting really became a jam, became my outlet. And that was like the thing that I did to keep myself sane. And even though like boxing was, getting better, I just like that will to like punch people in the face and get punched in the face just kind of like faded away. But
hey, you gotta kind of respect that. I respect that a lot. I think that's really what it's all about. When you got to make those kind of career changes in life to say, hey, you just gotta just go for the big time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, 100%. The path less taken, and I had to let boxing go, but I don't regret a single solitary thing that I did with the sport. I got my nose broken a few times, but I learned a skill set, and I did something that I really wanted to do, and acting was one of those things as well. It's like once I started acting, I just wanted to get everything that I had. And for me, it wasn't like an experiment. It wasn't like a social thing. It was like literally, this is going to be my career path, and I've treated it as such.
Respect there.
Somehow, some way, it's working out.
Yeah, the funny thing is, by the way, this is Steve from Real Sharks. How you doing, Kaz?
Hey, what's up, Steve?
Hey, I was looking at your stuff, and you mentioned how like boxing kind of hardened you and saved you. It's interesting because you're an actor, you're a writer, producer, and that seems like a niche that a lot of people do. But one of the niches that a lot of people don't have is being a stunt devil, and I've seen that you did a couple of stunts. Did boxing play a little hand in that?
Yeah, well, I think just my athletic background in general, a lot of times, like, when you have to do stunt-related stuff, like, I went out and got my basic stunt certification simply for the fact that I wanted to have that on my resume. So if there is a fight scene that comes up in a project, they're not going to be like, well, let's sweep in this double. I'll be like, no, I can handle this stuff myself. So the fall, that didn't actually come from boxing. That came from skating, from all those years of skating, knowing how to fall in a.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a crazy thing to have, because a lot of, like I said, like a lot of actors are just like, I'm just gonna focus on just being the best actor I can be, and being a stunt person is sort of a lost art, especially now where there's a lot of action films happening as we go forward in films. So that can be sort of a niche for you that gives you a spot above others.
It's one of those things where you as the viewer, when you're watching whatever project it is, you subconsciously pick up when the double gets swept in, right?
True.
And I've always thought of Harrison Ford as like the model of what would be down. Clearly, dude's not going to jump off a plane, but like when it comes to like his fight sequences and all that, he does them himself. And I always felt like that was kind of like the route that I wanted to take, because if you sweep in a double in the middle of a fight sequence, the viewer will always pick up on it, and you'll feel like something is off. They might cut to a wide, and like the body shape suddenly changes, or the fighting position. It just like there's like this change, and you'll get the same experience when they computer generate somebody. A lot of these.
Amen to that. Amen.
You know what I mean? They'll turn their hero into a VFX cartoon that automatically, as the viewer, takes you out of it, because you're like, oh, well, this isn't real. So to me, what happens when those moments happen I'm a movie buff. So when I'm sitting there watching that, I'm automatically like less invested in the outcome of the fight sequence, because those aren't two human beings slamming each other around. It's two glorified cartoons, or it's a stunt double and another, what I mean? So that was kind of the whole thinking behind wanting to do my fight scenes for myself, was the fact that I don't want to be the guy where the viewer suddenly gets taken out because they had to sweep someone in for me.
Nice. Amen to that. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's definitely crazy.
So, real quick question, because I'm sure you get asked this a lot, and I don't want to steer the conversation away from you, but what is it like, because I know you were on Equalizer too. What was it like working with Denzel Washington in, one word?
Intense.
Interesting, okay.
I can see that.
Alright,
okay. That's cool.
Straight up, the dude's a legend, so there is no, when you're on set with him, you can't ailing it in. He got one of the most recognizable voices in film history. So like as soon as you hear his voice on set, it's like, all right, it's go time.
Nice. So you're kind of an entrepreneur of all trades. I see, because you've done a lot of writing, you've done a lot of producing. I mean, what movies do you like getting behind the most? I mean, what films do draw you there the most? Action, drama, comedy? I mean, what really drives you to do more in cinema?
I just want to tell good stories, to be honest. And good stories cross over all genres, right? Like, a good story could be a comedy. A good story could be a drama. A good story could be an action film. But it really takes me to the quality project. And as I'm getting into the industry longer, I feel like there's kind of a lag in projects that emotionally affect you. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the studios go after the tent poles, and as you've seen, like remakes, and they try to make these safe bets with properties that people already are familiar with. But are those really the stories that move you? Are those really the stories that affect you emotionally as a viewer? Because I feel like this, right? Like, I think the movie-going experience is something that you should walk away with something after you've watched it.
Absolutely.
Right? You need either you question your values, or you reinforce your values, or you think about like how lucky to be in the life that you're in. You know, like those types of things are what I think the power of film can do, is to get, you know, just to have a little introspection for the audience member. And so like our movies that can get these going, you know, we all grew up on like action classics like Raiders of the Lost Ark, you know, that still holds up.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, we watched Terminator 2 Judgment Day, you know, and we're still awestruck by the second movie and the first movie, you know, the first Predator. It's like where you just had really quality content, but the acting was there. You know what
Absolutely,
I'm saying? Like,
agreed.
Yeah.
like you could get emotionally invested in an action film because those people, they had a reality that you could believe. And to me, you know, good comedies are the same way. You know, look at Eddie Murphy. I mean, trading like his classics, Trading Places. You know, like
Oh yeah.
Coming to America. I mean, a lot of people. I loved Harlem Nights, like crying, laughing.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just like, you know, good cinema is it has like we still have the potential to keep doing it. It's just like I think there's like a movement to kind of, you know, and I feel it within myself, like the screenplays that I've written, I'm trying to do something that affects versus just trying to make something that I think will sell. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. You know, that's a point I've made here on this show is, you know, I think a lot of studios and a lot of the industry right now are focused on, you know, they don't want to take anything new. They don't want to take a risk on anything. Everybody's so focused on let's remake this movie because we know if we do a remake, people love that movie, so they're going to come see it. But you don't really get anything from it anymore.
No. And honestly, that what they think is safe is starting to backfire on them. Because if you look at the number for what came out this last weekend, Charlie's Angels, Sony got hurt over that. You know, before that Terminator Dark Fate, right? They're going to be a write-off. So it's like you can't. Eventually, people catch on to it, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to just go see the same thing again." You know?
Oh yeah.
When there's so many original good stories out there to be told, and I think part of what I like about the fact that there's content is it is opening up the door for more creative projects.
Yeah, you know what's the crazy thing about when you just said about the original thing is you mentioned Eddie Murphy, you mentioned how he's a comedic genius and how you've worked with some of these legends like Denzel Washington, but you also worked with Eddie Murphy in Dolemite Is My Name, which is also a comedian that Dolemite was not given a chance and he had to kind of bring up himself. And it's a niche movie where it isn't like like you mentioned, like a Terminator Dark Fate or a Charlie's Angels that isn't going to play it safe. It actually kind of tells a story that was all about not taking, playing it safe and taking risks.
Yeah, well, that was the true story of Ray Morris, the guy banked on himself. He basically took a loan against his future royalties to get his own made. And that's what I really love about Dolemite Is My Name, because it really happened. And you have a guy the industry pretty much looked at as already past his prime, who decided to take his career into his own hands and succeeded. Niche market and ran with it, and people supported him. And I feel that model of writing and creating your own content has been done at times, but for whatever reason, I feel like people in Hollywood just kind of fall to their thing. All right, well, you're a grip, so you stay a grip. Well, if you're a locations guy, you just stay a locations guy. Oh, you're a director, it means all you do is direct. But people have been wearing multiple hats for a really long time. I mean, you want to go back to Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin with the studio made a power move. So like, it's always about, really, to me, at the people who have crossed those lines, like Clint Eastwood, who acted, directed, produced, wrote, and got into all of it, because that is where you can, I feel you really can exercise. Do you just want to be a color on the canvas, or be the painter? Because the painter is really the one who's expressing himself. So like, you know, as an actor, you get a chance, you can show your bright color off and whatnot, but you're not ever really fully getting to express yourself across the spectrum, which some people are fine with that. And they might disagree with me, but I feel like not always, but there's some times where I just feel like I need to, that's why I'm really happy that I was in Dolemite is my name. I'm honored that I even got on that cast list and I shared the credits with some really, really talented people. But I'm also, that's a movie I would have been a fan of regardless because of the subject matter.
Yeah, definitely. But I feel like you've kind of earned this. Yeah, I didn't think you were handed anything, and I think it's because of your work in Standing 8. Not only were you talk about just having just a chameleon type of actor and writer and producer, as we said, that you actually did the story, you writ it, and you were the leading actor in this short. How was that? This is just being that person. You're being in the spotlight now. You're not the guy that just comes in on the set. You're actually and then writing it. How do you write that at your character and then actually play your character?
Well, Standing 8. So just to give your listeners a little background, Standing 8 is an award-winning short film about a boxer who's forced to retire after being diagnosed with lupus. My mother has lupus and she's been fighting the disease since before. It was one of those things where I got to a point where I had a few credits at the time. This was when the idea was like really conceived in like late 2014, like literally like 2014. I wrote like the first draft, I think on like Christmas Day. And it was really just idea of wanting to do something to give back to my mother. The lupus struggle is a real struggle. Like her immune system has been legitimately trying to kill her for well over 30 years. And, it was like, let me use my creative abilities to do something. And also at that time auditioned, for boxing roles, and I wasn't getting any boxing roles, and it was blowing my mind. Because past a guy who had no idea how to fight, because coming from a boxing background, you know, boxing scenes, like I'm pretty anal retentive when I'm watching them.
Yeah. And
I'm like, that guy can't fight. Why cast him? And it would blow my mind because I'd have like, you know, like I fought in the gloves, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, like I'm a shoo-in here. Come on.
Like, yeah, exactly. So it came to kind of a crescendo where I was just like, you know what? I'm going to take control. I'm going to do my own thing. I got a little production team together. We banged out that first draft. When I'm making a project, you know, I've seen how sometimes production can treat actors or treat people. And to me, when we're on set, we are all there for one goal, and that is to make a good product. So no one to me is more important than anyone else. And that idea that one department could be more important than another department is ludicrous to me, because everyone deserves respect because everyone for the same reason. So that's kind of how I ran my set. And it was a very, you know, very painless shoot. Hiccup like in the middle where we lost the location, so we had to come back 2 weeks later and shoot our climax. But it ended up working out for the better. We weren't rushed at all, and we were able to go through all the dailies and see what the product looked like. And it was a time because you're independently doing something, so it's just like every step of the way is going to take work and hiccups and finding the right people or whatever.
Of course.
But the product that's out now, that's on Amazon and iTunes and Google Play and Vimeo, like that product is 100% my baby. Because I oversaw every aspect of production. You know, I brought in, Jace Harley to do the music. I had, you know, it was all the favors I could and really putting out something that carried a lot of emotional weight for me, but also carried a lot of emotional weight for its intended audience, which was, people who were suffering from lupus. And I really feel like I achieved that because the feedback that I've gotten from the lupus community has been incredible. And, you know, there's messages that I've gotten on Instagram that literally made me cry because people just like, you know, my significant other, I've had the disease for 10 years. And after we watched your movie, he turned to me and said, I'm so sorry, I never knew. You know what I mean? And like stuff like that. And it was really, you know, it's to me that's powerful. That's part of the power that we have for creators, is to actually help people. And the Lupus Foundation has gotten behind it and whatnot. So it's just.
I was going to say, I saw you doing some ads for the Lupus Foundation as well.
Yeah, they kind of be because of the Equalizer 2 red carpet. I wore a Lupus pin.
Yes, I saw that.
I better do something to raise awareness.
Right.
And I'm glad I did, because they reached out. You know, the social media team caught wind of it, and they reached out and, you know, asked if there was anything that they could help me with. Honestly, was the first time anyone has ever asked that.
That's
amazing, man.
It's so crazy.
Has ever like come around and been like, "What can we do to help your mom?" You know. So that to me just struck a chord with me, that like these people who don't even know me or know my family are like, "Is there anything we can do to help?"
That's what it's all about.
I mean, that's let alone just making that film, but having that as a win. But not only was that a win for you, it's got to be just the success that short gained too, in just a short amount of time. It's got a lot of awards. You've won best actor in all of these film festivals. That's got to be a good feeling as far as an actor going forward. And I think it shows the testament of your work, your body of work as an actor. There's not a lot of, like, a lot of people I like to call are like 3 and out. It's kind of like a 1 strike, 2 strike, 3 strike, and then you're out of the industry. You're gone for years. You try to climb your way back into being an actor, and it doesn't work out. But you've had a very steady body of work throughout these 2010s, and it just seems to be rising. Like I said, your last film being Dolemite Is My Name. Like, what do you see yourself going beyond that? I know that's a hard question to ask an actor or anybody, but I mean that is a big film. Eddie Murphy himself just coming back into film and getting into comedy, and you being in that film, that's got to propel you high up there.
Well, I think, you know, the industry, there's so many factors that go into what happens in this industry. So I took this year, because I shot Dolemite last summer of 2018, right? And over the course of like, since like last December, like a year from now, a year ago, I've done independent projects. Like I did a film in Vietnam called Invisible Love. I worked on Odd Man Rush, which is a hockey film that I shot earlier this year. I did after being sexually assaulted, decides to defend herself. Defend Bola, and then I just got off a horror film called Shimmer, which is like a really interesting take on the horror genre. And I've been able to kind of play different characters. So I played a doctor in this period piece. I played a hockey player. I played like, you know, kind of like a detective with a heart, and then I played like a detective who was way in over his head trying to figure out this entity that's killing people. So like I look at that, and before that, you know, I had Dolemite, and I was kind of like, I was in an episode of Blue Bloods, and I did some Good Cop, and I've been very lucky that since Dolemite, I've played very, very different roles. And to me, that is exactly where I would like to be in my career, is playing a lot of different roles. Like, Hollywood has this thing about pigeonholing people. They've got this branding thing where they're just like, oh, well, he's a good action, so we're just gonna lead, so we'll keep using him for romantic lead. To me, my brand is that I can do anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, that I can play these different characters, and I can bring myself to the table, my life experience to the table, and my accent work and other things that I've worked on, that I can be all over the map and do a lot of different things. Because to me, as an actor, I want to step into different shoes. I want to step into as many different shoes as possible, and I want to be challenged. Because if you're not challenged, you're not growing. And to me, I want to constantly be growing. I want to get better. And the only way, honestly, is getting more camera time and trying out different roles and really going for them. So from the acting side of it, you know, I just want to, you know, I'd love to continue doing a mix of studio films and indies, bring something different to the table that I enjoy. But I have to create my own content as well. That become my priority is getting my own projects off the ground. And now, because I've been working with the Lupus Foundation for the past year, numerous events, pledge support on Standing 8, I really feel like I need to get a feature film with lupus as a plot device off the ground. So I've been working really hard at making that a reality. I went to AFM last week at the American Film Market, where it's like basically a trade show for independent film, just to like educate myself on like larger features. You know, I know I can handle a short because I did that with Standing 8, but I needed to get, you know, what it takes to get a feature, like a quality feature film made. And I'm just kind of, I'm like a sponge right now, just trying to soak up all the information, the game plan, and working on getting my own stuff off the ground. So it's a twofold thing, you know, because you never know where Hollywood's going to. And even when you do audition, you don't know who you're auditioning up against. It could be a thing where they put out risk, oh, we're looking for this role, but in the same token, up to someone who's signed to CAA, and that person will always get cast over you because they're part of the package of the people that are funding the project. So the only way you can kind of circumvent that is your own stuff. So it's like kind of like having to fight a war on two fronts.
So let's change up the subject a little bit. Let me ask you, what was your favorite movie of the year so far?
Shoot. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I really like Dolemite. And I enjoyed Wes's performance as Erbil Martin. I mean, he crushed it. Erbil Martin, he crushed it. You know, I liked the story behind it. I actually saw Doc Sleep last weekend to follow up to The Shining, which I had low expectations for, because I'm like, The Shining is the best horror film ever made of all time. And I went and I was pleasantly surprised by that.
Interesting. Okay.
The acting, I mean, I was like, you know, because I had AMC pass, so I have everything, you know.
Right.
AMC, 20 months, I'll just go see whatever I'm interested in. But that was like a really, a pleasant surprise. You know, I've seen, and I'd have to, so far, so it's really Dolemite.
So, do you have any projects that you're working on right now that you want to share with everybody?
Yeah, that you could say.
Any hidden projects you'd like to say on there to everybody?
You know, I'm just really, I have my feature with lupus as a plot device is called Clinch, and it's about a fighter really sick, and the doctors have no idea what's going on with her, and you later find out that it's lupus. So it's not the Standing 8, but it's very similar, and a little more relevant to the lupus community because it affects a woman versus affecting a man. So that's what I'm kind of working on hard in the background. And also I'm always doing a little writing, and I have a couple of other projects that I really can't get into too much detail, but of different genres that I've teamed up with some really great people. And as I get a little further along in development, I'll be able to make an announcement. But just been quiet until I have something official. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're gonna punch everybody in the face with some good big announcements.
Hopefully. I mean, that's 2020. The way things are lining up, I think 2020 is going to be a big year. At least for the project that I'm working on. And
I think for you as an actor it is, because we
I wouldn't doubt your body.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, exactly. You're on. Everyone's talking about you. You're a rising star here going on.
Oh, I appreciate that. Well, I got four in post-production right now, which is great, because I mean, 2020, I'll have 4 films with my name on it, not to mention whatever else. So,
and it's a real honor to have you here on the Real Sharks podcast.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you guys.
We appreciate you too. Yeah. Thank you for talking to us tonight, and you have a great night.
All right, you too, fellas.
So I'm laying in bed, and I'm having this weird dream. I mean, a really weird dream. Next thing you know, I'm on board a freaking ship, guys.
What?
Right? And these aliens here, they're giving me the face hug treatment.
Whoa.
Giving me the chest bursting treatment, you know?
No way.
Just give me the basic Travis Walton experience.
Man.
And you know what they told me?
What's that?
We're a big fan of the Real Sharks podcast.
And welcome back to Real Sharks, ladies and gentlemen. I am joined by Lucas Maximus.
How's it going, guys?
So, Luke, I actually wanted to get your take on this. Recently Disney Plus came out with the Mandalorian show, and, everyone thought it was going to be the biggest new thing, but it turned out it wasn't as big as everyone thought it was. It's still lagging behind, especially even the Mandalorian, in views, against things like Stranger Things, even DC's Titans. It's lagging behind, and it really kind of got me interested though, because Netflix here just struck a deal with Nickelodeon, and then I'm seeing Netflix bring back a lot of these MGM type shows. They're bringing back Vikings recently. They just landed a deal to bring back Vikings, and it just makes me kind of go with this whole: are we witnessing this new Rebel Alliance versus, as I like to call, the Mouse Empire right now?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about. I think it's important to remember that the Netflix fight is not just between Netflix and Disney, but it's true. Amazon Prime hasn't really said anything or done anything to the effect of stepping up its game. But of course, again, the whole thing is, like, Amazon has its own thing because people are going to sign up for Prime accounts regardless. So even if none of the movies are any good, people are still going to have their Prime accounts for other things. So, and of course, Amazon backing is gonna, they're gonna just film whatever they want.
Yeah.
But I don't know what to say. So Disney, obviously, the numbers didn't quite, they're not quite the level of Stranger Things. I think the important thing to remember is that Disney's subscriptions are nowhere near Netflix's right now.
No.
But they have exceeded the expectations. I think
they did. They announced that. Yes.
It was like they were anticipating 8 million. They got 10 million.
Yeah.
Within the first 24 hours, and that's still pretty huge.
Yeah.
And of course, I can imagine that's only going to get bigger as the time goes on. But this is where we're at right now. This is what I suspect. Industry insiders will eventually call, like, the streaming wars.
They're already calling it that. And I would actually like to say, me and you actually rubber stamp that, because we were talking about this well before a lot of the other podcasts and media outlets were talking about it. I mean, I seen an article maybe 2 days after our podcast episode in which me and you discussed this upcoming streaming war between Netflix, Amazon, and Hulu. Well, basically Disney, Netflix, and Amazon. And, then I started seeing all this streaming war stuff. But, I just want to get to this point, though, too. Do you think it's going to be a trend now to see where we have things like Disney basically reamping and rebooting old movies like, The Lady and the Tramp, Jungle Book, and then now we're going to see, Netflix resurrect old things like Nickelodeon cartoons, like resurrecting old movies, like, they did the Breaking Bad movie, for example. They're going to start bringing back these old things. So it's like Disney's like, we'll redo our old stuff, and Netflix is like, we'll revamp and resurrect old things.
Yeah, I think Netflix will be in a weird position to do that because, again, all of the other movie studios, they're all still trying to find their own streaming stuff as well. We already lost. There was already Apple Plus, which came and went. It's already still out there, but it's been kind of like eclipsed by all of the buzz around Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
But even before that, all of the other studios, they've been trying to pull stuff from Netflix because they want to do their own streaming service. And I suspect because after Disney, that's going to Paramount already has CBS All Access, so that's theirs. And then of course there's still Sony. Sony doesn't have one. Fox is owned by Disney, so of the what used to be the big six, there was there was Sony, Paramount,
Warner
Disney,
Brothers.
Fox got absorbed.
Yep.
I'm trying to remember the other one.
Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers, and then Universal. So Warner Brothers, Universal, Those two have not come out with streaming services. Same thing with Sony. I think of those three, I can see it possibly mostly with. It's hard to say. I think Sony tried to do like a streaming, like a TV service that you can buy through PlayStation.
Yeah.
I don't think it lasted. I think
it's still going on. You can still stream things through the PlayStation Network. But yeah, there's sometimes they're priced ridiculously though.
Yeah, I could maybe see Universal trying to do that because like Universal tries to like try to copy the whole Marvel shared universe thing. Well, as did Warner Brothers, but like,
I could see Warner Brothers teaming up with Netflix and Universal teaming up with Disney. Basically, Universal going to Disney and Warner Brothers going to Netflix, since Universal and Disney have always had this kind of relationship together.
I could kind of see that, yeah. But yeah, Netflix. I think they're still trying to pull people in with the original stuff because again, like they're going to lose all the NBC stuff soon. I think.
Yeah.
Right, they're going to lose all the Office and Friends, which most people are drawn to. So
let's move the conversation though into the more of the content base because did you get Disney Plus?
I did not get Disney Plus.
I did, and let me tell you, it was interesting. For all that Disney owns now with the Fox franchise, they certainly didn't have hardly anything on it. They're still allowing a lot of their old titles to get, I guess, leased out to Netflix and others because, now that they own Fox, they own Predator, they own Aliens, none of that was on there. It was basically Star Wars, it was the Marvel stuff, not even the shows either that they have on Netflix. So they haven't pulled that yet. So there were still the shows.
Yeah.
There was basically every Disney movie you can think of on there. And then there were some of the older shows like That's So Raven, like Darkwing Duck, a few things like that. But beyond that, though, it wasn't as grandeur as people thought it was going to be. And I was kind of surprised that Disney didn't have more on there. But The Mandalorian is amazing, so I guess, that's really winning the day for them. But, they didn't have more on there. They didn't have everything from Fox.
I'm sure. Maybe I think it could be a case that they were trying to hold back because they knew that what they had wasn't going to be enough. I don't know. I think, the fact that the Fox stuff didn't show up soon is a little bit weird. Maybe they're just trying to figure.
Maybe they're trying to go towards more of the family orientation and maybe save that stuff for Hulu.
Yeah, that's true.
I also want to get back to this whole, and I hear this debate all the time with people. I have a friend outside the podcast who actually talks to me about some of this. His main saying is, if it's on Netflix, I won't pay attention to it because his idea is that anything that comes on Netflix is terrible. And I'm like, that's not necessarily true. And I want to actually kind of squash this debate right now, and I'm going to kind of just say it here. Content will drive people. If you have good content, it will naturally come. If Disney and Amazon and Hulu can't put out good content to Netflix, or vice versa, they're going to fail. Netflix is going to really have to start coming out with some original material, not just kind of cookie-cutter, cut and dry, alien invasion films. Oh, God, look, the bad person is the main villain, the main guy all along.
Yeah. I think, another thing they need to do is, because they keep doing it, is that they keep canceling shows people really, really like after the first two seasons. And now, again, we don't know, because another thing is we don't know their numbers on the streaming side. And again, I think in their own case, the data's kind of overrated anyway, because they're getting their $10 regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So the amount of stuff you can have, it really would benefit you to focus on original stuff, perhaps even niche stuff, so that the different groups of people, different types of audiences, feel that they know that they're being catered to by Netflix, as opposed to just trying to go for a broad thing that anybody would, that lowest common denominator stuff.
Yeah.
Because you can afford to do that if it's only, if the money's going to that anywhere. And again, Netflix does not share their data, so we don't know specifically how well certain shows are doing, and if they're even right. Because again, like Facebook lied about their viewer numbers for years, so Netflix could very well just be lying about the amount of numbers that each individual show is getting. I think where we're at with Disney Plus, it remains to be seen, because again, Netflix still has I think it's 100 million subscribers, or 200 million worldwide. So that's still a pretty high number for any streaming service to, try to beat. Hulu, both Hulu and Amazon Prime have like the advantage of because they're like bundled with other things. Like if you have a Spotify account, you can get yourself a Hulu account. And also Hulu it has sections that are free, so you don't even have to worry about that.
But I'm gonna call it right now, because as I was saying before, and I think me and you are the head honchos on this whole topic here, since we were talking about beforehand. And I'm just gonna give a prediction right now for all our listeners, so everyone's gonna want to hear this right here. I really think what's gonna end up happening to all this is we're gonna see almost a implosion of all these companies again, because basically what's going on, let's go with the reality of what's really happening here. It's about money. It's about advertisements. Netflix is losing money because they can't advertise like Hulu can right in the middle of a segment. They don't have the huge amount of dollars like Disney does because of a theme park. They don't have that kind of backing here. But what I think is going to happen, though, is when all this initially started, and we brought this up before, is it was all about no commercials, against cable, against the system, so to speak. And now all that you're seeing happening is this complete reversal of all these companies that said, no, we don't want to be like these cable companies, basically turning into the cable companies. Look at YouTube, for example.
Exactly.
YouTube used to be completely free, but now they are demonetizing people left and right. Doesn't matter who you are. And basically now they even got YouTube TV or YouTube Live or YouTube Red, as they call it. Sorry, where it's basically like a TV service, a cable network service. And it's Hulu's turning in the same thing. They got this new Hulu Live or Hulu. I can't remember what it's called, but it's this new Hulu program where it's just like regular TV. So I'm starting to see all these companies essentially just basically going to implode to being basically Cox Digital Cable again. Or direct TV.
Yeah. If the situation returns, then eventually they're going to be bundled. The same thing is with cable companies. If that's the case, then it will be interesting to see who keeps standing up. Now, I keep pointing out, that Amazon is connected to, Amazon Prime is connected to Amazon, but it is very possible that the viability of the system goes away, because it still costs money to keep that up, still costs money to make shows. It's very possible that they're like, well, this isn't making us anything, so whether it's even worth it to stick it around, that'll be hard to say, because ultimately, so if with Hulu, Disney, Netflix, Amazon, and then there are the smaller ones, CBS All Access. There's what else is there? So there just keep getting. Oh, there's also the HBO now. So all of that comes together. That starts to basically feel like the same price as cable, which everybody's saying like, no, we don't want to do that anymore.
Yep.
Yeah, something that you will give. One thing Netflix also does is, the reason it doesn't pull profits is because it's always like reinvesting the money. So whether or not it will stay sustainable, I don't know.
It's going to have to keep loyalty through content. Like I said, content will drive the company. And if Disney, Amazon, and all these companies can't deliver on great content, no one's going to be watching. We're starting to see that right now with the theaters, where people won't go see a movie now in theaters because they think it's either a bubblegum stamped kind of film.
I can see that definitely happening. And right now, there's a new thing going on with the news about there have been new regulations in how movie theaters are run. So for years and years and years, there was a regulation about how movie studios could not own movie theaters. And there was also a law against bundles or block sales. So obviously, a movie theater, yes, they're a movie studio sells or rents out their movies for movie theaters to watch. And most people know that in terms of like profit margins, most movie theaters don't make any money. They make very little money off of the movies themselves. The studio takes most of it, and the movie theaters make their money off of concessions, or make their profit. With block sales, with the deregulation of what a movie studio can own with a movie theater, that means that even how those movie theaters operate are going to be completely changed with the studios.
with Disney Plus and all this, it's still moving towards this thing that, again, only the absolute top people are going to be able to basically put things out because they'll be able to support all the money. And, like, essentially mid people are just going to be continued to be priced out of all of this.
Essentially, it's going to make, I think, as you're saying, almost these movie companies slaves to the streaming industries. You know, these companies are basically going to be begging just to be distributed on Disney Plus, Netflix, and Hulu. You know, because these independent films are going to, you know, it's one thing to get a movie made, but it's another thing just to get it, you know, out there. So, you know, and they don't have any kind of video chains around here, as we've spoken before. So now it's going to be like these studios are just going to go begging towards these, you know, corporate vampires, so to say.
Yeah, I can see that. So it'll depend on how Netflix can kind of ingratiate, because I always felt that there was always a little bit of a hesitation with Netflix. They're definitely the new people, and there's been so much in the news about like how like the Academy itself is trying to prevent Netflix from getting seen in getting Oscar nominations. How it prevented it from film fest movies in Netflix to be in film festivals. A lot of the old guard still dislike it. So I'm curious to see whether Disney Plus is going to be sort of this rallying point for like the old guard of Hollywood to use as a weapon against Netflix, as we were talking about.
Yeah. I think Netflix is the rebel alliance right now, pieced together by all these, broken, dying studios, and basically Disney's the big dog.
I will say this. I don't, and I think that does give Netflix a little bit too much credit, because some of Netflix's practices aren't great either.
Oh, I agree with that.
I consider Netflix a little bit closer to like Elon Musk and Tesla. So there's an admiration to it because it is disrupting older, really much more garbage systems in place. But that doesn't mean that they signal a brighter future for the average consumer or the average person who's working in that industry. I think Netflix can survive. I do think, again, if Disney was able to take down Fox, well, not really take down, but buy, but if they could absorb Fox, then I think Disney is well within its power to like take down any sort of newcomer or any competitor in this situation. And of course, Disney is not the only competitor right now, but that goes into the larger issue of like that Disney is really going into like a full monopoly mode, in which only the big films are like being done by Disney. It's only, and the other studios are doing fine, but again, the other studios are if they get too many flops on their hands, what does that spell for their future? I don't know. So it's very, very messy. And again, if Disney can get 10 million subscribers within, the first few days, what's going to happen, within a couple months when, Christmas comes along and somebody wants to buy somebody a subscription, and especially because right now they're offering them for these extremely discounted rates, basically like basically like a drug dealer almost. Yeah. When drug dealers basically give their samples out either for free or for cheap, because they know that like you'll get started, get hooked, want to come back for more.
Exactly. As I said in the article I wrote, right now Disney is the pushers, and I'm a fiend for the Mandalorian right now, and the mouse has me in my pockets.
Yep.
And we will catch you guys on the flip side. Real Sharks out.